Hi, my name is Rachelle Smith, entrepreneur, professional speaker, and author. Last time, I highlighted the importance of savoring the moments, cherishing the special moments in your life because time certainly flies by, and oftentimes we look up and wonder, where did the time go? And whatever the monumental event is in our life is over. And so savor each and every moment in your life. Along those same veins, I wanted to share a few thoughts with you this morning on the importance of remembering your champions. And folks, we all have champions in life, folks who've encouraged you, who've supported you, who've been champions and supporters and advocates and mentors and role models and cheerleaders. And there's so many different words I could use to describe those special people who've oftentimes come and gone in our lives. So celebrate them and cherish them while they're living, but also take time to celebrate and remember your champions after they've gone and departed this earth. And this morning I actually want to highlight three special folks, and there could be a myriad number of folks that I could highlight. But this particular episode I want to talk about three wonderful people I've crossed paths with in my life who are no longer living. But they certainly left indelible fingerprints on my life, on my heart, and on my life journey. And the first of which is Mr. Ashlock. Now, Mr. Ashlock, and I recently just went to Chicago for a 2-day alumni meeting, and I took good old Adventurous Rachelle. I took the megabus again, and coming back, I actually sat right behind the driver. It was megabus for that particular departure. It contracted with another company, so it was a charter coach bus that brought us back, and it was an older charter coach bus, and it reminded me so much of my days at FIU, and it's Florida International University for those who don't know, where I received my first master's degree. And for that particular return trip home from Chicago, I sat right behind the driver, and I just, that entire trip home, I kept thinking about Mr. Ashlock, who passed away many years ago. And Mr. Ashlock was the bus driver and at FIU for the inter-campus shuttle service. And so I lived in Sunny Isles Beach, which is really close to North Miami Beach, which is really close to my particular campus. I was a student at the North Campus, but I actually worked for about the last year of classes. I worked at the South Campus. So I was a media relations assistant. So I worked for the university in the Office of University Media Relations. And had a wonderful experience. But folks, as you've heard me say time and time again, it was a very challenging time for me financially, and the thought of even when I learned that lesson and realized that they did have that shuttle service between campus, I believe it was $1 each way. I started taking the shuttle. Would take it from the North Campus down to South Campus, go to work and come back, and had classes at night. And so had a wonderful experience there at FIU. But when I think back to Mr. Ashlock, and Mr. Ashlock was my bus driver, it looked like he could have been my grandfather. Now, of course, my father's 6'2", but he would have been a much shorter version of my grandfather, but just was a wonderful man and really supported me. And just when I think back to how important that was and how challenging things were for me financially, and the fact that there was that shuttle service and how much he really appreciated the opportunity. He was retired. Been retired for several years and was doing that job just to keep busy. And so transporting students to and fro, and just I was always talking about my dreams and my goals and everything, and I often, like I said, sat right behind him. So we used to chat on the bus about different things, and he was just a wonderful person and just a wonderful bus driver. And people often ask me, how did you get into to smooth jazz music? Because and folks, I was really young when I first was kind of turned on to smooth jazz music, but that is because Mr. Ashlock would always play smooth jazz music going to and fro. And I realized years later, as I was working in sales, I was doing the same thing, because when you're in traffic all the time and it tends to be stressful and unpredictable, smooth jazz music is very relaxing, it's very calming and very centering. And so it was back then in my FIU days when I really begun to love smooth jazz music. And even still now, if there's any type of event, a smooth jazz concert or in the park, whatever, I'm always like one of the youngest people there. And demographically speaking, I should be much older as a fan of smooth jazz music, but I absolutely love smooth jazz music and have done so for so many years. But as I reflect back on Mr. Ashlock, and we think about just, they don't have to be necessarily the big world-changing, earth-shattering people in our lives, but it could be the person who's driving the bus, the person who serves you your food in the lunchroom. And so I just challenge you to celebrate those people. And I certainly, today, as I reflect and think about Mr. Ashlock and just the gratitude that I share for his driving and getting me to and from each campus safely every day. And secondly, want to focus on Dr. Joseph Stern. Now, Dr. Stern passed away in February of 2014. I remember because his birthday, I remembered his birthday. He had just turned 83 years old, and I went to Louisiana for a couple of weeks that February and then came back and hadn't seen him for a few days, and I asked the dude up front, and he told me he had passed away, and I was so shocked. But I knew Dr. Stern from Bally Fitness when I was at Bally Fitness in Novi. Just a phenomenal human being. Just really made an impact, and he was an OBGYN, former OBGYN physician, but he was so supportive, folks, not only of my fitness, and he would always tell me, kiddo, you're adding years to your life. You're adding years to your life when you're in here. Keep up the good work, kiddo. And I remember the first time he approached me at Bally, he said, you have great cardiac output. And of course I had, in biopharmaceutical sales, I had called on cardiologists, so I know exactly what he meant when he said that. But anyway, he was so supportive of my fitness, but also very supportive of me as a speaker and as a writer. And he said, someday, kiddo, you're going to be lecturing, you're going to be speaking around the world. Don't ever give up on your dreams and goals. And folks, even when I'm in my gym, he's passed away, 2.5 years now. I still think about Dr. Stern, and I sometimes just kind of look and wish he would come through there, and just everyone knew him. He was always talking to people, and just a great human being. And so again, it's people that we may not necessarily be in any type of, formal situation, arrangement, or relationship with, but it's just the people that we see on a regular basis that encourage us to keep on keeping on. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Think about those people that you have in your life who've come, who may still be in your life, but also those who've gone on and passed away. Celebrate your champions. And Dr. Stern was certainly a champion. And last week, folks, last week, one of my champions, one of my super champions passed away in Louisiana. And Miss Leone was one of the supervisors, you may have heard me say in the past, started out when I was in college and undergrad in Louisiana, worked at a Chinese restaurant for a year. And Leone was one of my supervisors. Now, she wasn't my direct supervisor, but she was on the management team. And Miss Leone was so supportive of my college dreams, my college goals. If things were slow, you'd often see me in there with books, studying or whatever, but just incredibly supportive. We had kind of lost touch and regained touch over the years since I graduated, and had been in touch solidly for the last couple of years. But about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, she got sick, and it was one thing after another. And fortunately, I was in Louisiana last month for a week for my birthday week. And so I had an opportunity. She was in ICU, had an opportunity to see her twice, and just really, she knew just how much I appreciated her and how much I cherished her and her support all of those years. And so to see her in ICU, it really kind of shook me up. And I received the word from a relative last week, received an email that she had passed away last Wednesday, October 5th, that morning. And so, Miss Leone was a wonderful human being. And so, folks, when these folks depart the earth, when there's special people in your life, whether, again, you know them well, there may be people you see regularly on an informal basis, do they know how much they mean to you? Okay, tell those people who are still living, because tomorrow's not promised to us. All right, it's so important that we recognize and we celebrate our champions while they're still living, but also continue to celebrate them and allow their legacy to live on through you, even when they've gone on and passed away. And so each of these individuals, and I said, the list could be long in terms of those people who positively impacted my life, but fortunately, those people, for the most part, are still living. And that's one thing, if you know me well, if you don't even know me well, you realize and you know that I'm very big on honoring people and celebrating people in my life who've made a difference, who've inspired me, who've impacted me, who've challenged, motivated, encouraged me along the way. Because folks, we don't get anywhere in life on our own. It takes special people, even the most unexpected people in the most unexpected places, to really impact our lives and make a difference. So I challenge you today, if you're not doing so already, celebrate those special people in your life. And not only will your life be better, their life will be better as well. So I thank you so much for your time. Make it a wonderful day.